What's going on, guys? SeeJay here, and today we're going to be talking Mines of Moria Chapter 4 for Heroes of Middle-earth. Let's dive right into it. Alright guys, so looking at the screen right now, we're finally there. We're in Chapter 4. This is based off mid-December, so keep that in mind. Subject to change as people continue to play the game and get access to more characters, especially since we just got Thorin, and Goblins have been sort of like a focus point. I don't want to call that out because I do expect both those teams to continue to rise in the rankings in most of the chapters. But Chapter 4, most difficult chapter of them all, of course. Multiple phases against a single target boss. Single target boss is already much more difficult than the wave for Chapter 1 and Chapter 3. But diving right into it, this chapter is not really great with hybrids. So this is like one of the easier chapters to sort of look at the actual team built comps and not trying to figure out where does the hybrids kind of live and then how many different characters sort of fall into that hybrid category, because you can build so many different, like, you know, 3s and 2 kind of like wombo combo teams, right? So diving right in at number 11, I know it's top 10, but you're +1 here. Mordor, once again, bottom of the list. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that just people haven't built Mordor. It's like Dunlin, right? Like Dunlin's not anywhere. Nobody uses Dunlin. But I'd be curious, like, imagine if Dunlin's good. Like, tell me in the comments below if you have Dunlin built out. I'd love to know if there's one person out there who actually built that squad. And I'm going to call it right now. Dunlin is going to be the squad that is going to be required for the next legendary, because nobody has them. And look what they did with the Goblins, right? Like, nobody really had Goblins. You're like, you know what? We're going to make Goblins a requirement. When everyone thought like, oh, dwarves, like we got to get Feely Killy, all these guys, and everyone pivoted and started building out all your dwarves because you wanted to get ready for Thorin. And then they threw that wrench at us and said, no, actually it's Goblins. And everyone's like, well, great. I'm not even close to having my Goblins built out, including myself. So Mordor, bottom of the list, pretty much bottom of the list every time. In this case, number 10, you do have Goblins. Now, Goblins doesn't have a lot of uses in Chapter 4, and they don't seem really good in Chapter 4. Let me know what you guys think. But I do think that they still have opportunity to continue to move up as more and more people do actually build out the Goblin squads and get them to that 6-7 star rank, because you need them to get 7-star Thorin if you didn't get him the first time around, which probably most people didn't have a 7-star Thorin the first time around. Coming in at number 9 is Gondor, right? So we saw in Chapter 3, that's kind of their place to shine, but that's really their only place to shine. They might perform a little bit better as they get a little bit stronger and more built out and refined, but right now they're really just like a good wave clearing team. So Chapter 3, and I guess you could include them in Chapter 1, but they're not really great when it comes to single target. Isengard, they're just not a good Chapter 4 team. They're really only chapter where they're like a top 3, top 4 team. It's going to be in Chapter 2, just the way that their kit's built. And even though like that is also a single target boss, it's a completely different style boss. Isengard's just not really going to perform that well. But it's one of those squads that a lot of people probably have built on their roster, including myself. So even though they're not really a good team, and there's like 7 better fully built out squads that are above them on this list, I still generally use them as one of my 5 raid teams, because they're just, it's always going to be power dependent, right? Like, even though Isengard isn't great, they're still going to perform better as like a 30,000 power, 40,000 power squad than like a 15,000 power squad that I don't have any gear or anything into, right? So you kind of have to pick and choose based off what your account has to offer. And for me, Isengard is one of my stronger teams on my account. So like, even though they're not great in chapter, or really any of the chapters besides Chapter 2, I still have to use them pretty much across all 4 chapters at this point in the game. Coming in at number 7, we've got Road to Rivendell. So I think this might be like the lowest they're coming in on any of the 4 chapters. But again, they're still like a mid-tier team, and they're like a top 5, or probably number 5 as like an overall raid team in Mines of Moria. So they're very good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. They're still going to perform and probably be able to get you close to that higher difficulty 3 scores once you have them like really defined and built out with like the, you know, the best glyphs possible for this specific chapter, right, of the raid. But this is definitely their worst chapter, and they seem to be kind of capped. Like, their power definitely doesn't have a whole lot more juice to kind of get them like probably in difficulty 4 pushing like over 1 million score. Coming at number 6 is the Dol'Guldur. So they're they're going to be pretty good when they get a full squad. And if you wanted to try to like mix match them, because again, they only have 3 of their own characters, Tebeb and Bekalu with this squad seem to be performing quite well. Again, I like to run Haradrim as a whole because Haradrim's good in this chapter, and I have the squad. So for me, on my account, like Dol'Guldur is just not going to be a team that I currently have built out. But again, as the game progresses, as people get more and more characters fully built and start, you know, going down the list of characters they want to go next on, I think Dol'Guldur has a lot of opportunity, and there's not a lot of shadow teams. So, you know, they're one that if I'm going to invest into when they're free to play farmable, I probably will, because I think their kit is really cool and I definitely want to give them a chance. Coming in at number 5, we've got Haradrim. Again, top 5 in all 4 chapters. Chapter 4, I don't think it's like their best chapter. They definitely outperform in some of the other ones, but they're still a great team that can, you know, perform extremely well. And they have, I think, a lot of juice and opportunity to kind of continue to push as more and more of their team is built, right? So we saw that you can kind of split them up a little bit and include them with some other teams. But for me, I've been using Haradrim and they've been performing okay for me. Coming in number 4, you got Thorin's Company. Again, we kind of discussed this in the chapter 3 video. They are certainly a team that is still being kind of built out because they're newer with, you know, the trio from Thorin and because of Thorin himself. But it does look like they're more than capable of a team to hit like 1.5 million once they're, you know, they're fully built out, 7-star, etc. So they're certainly going to be a team that's a top 5 team in probably all 4 chapters of the raid. So no surprise there being a legendary like character, right? Coming in at number 3, you've got Rohan. Rohan, again, top 5 team in a lot of different chapters, and they're so good. And like, Rohan has five members, but like nobody really uses the other 2. What is it, Eldred and I'm drawing a blank on the other character, but nobody really uses Wilfwin, right? Wilfwin, yeah, something like that. Anyways, I'd be curious, like, if anyone has those characters built and has ever played like the full Rohan 5 instead of like the classic trio that everybody runs with like 2 filler characters. In this case, it's another run where they're running Pippin and Merry, which is probably great to get, you know, your max scores. But this is another squad, like I said, for me personally, the way it works on my account, it's generally Ironhide and then either one of Narameri or Lomian or Legolas, depending on how the Rivendell squad best performs for each of the individual chapters. Balin's Expedition, that's another squad that's generally kind of floating around that mid to high mid, even to top. So in this case, chapter 4, they shine the best. Balin's Expedition. Lord Balin is just such an awesome character. He's kind of a plug and play on a lot of teams in a lot of different comps. And I think with Rumil and Orphan coming here soon, I've said that in probably every one of the videos I made on specifically these raid chapters, I think that team is going to continue to advance and excel and move up the ladder as more and more people have them built out. Because I think once they go free to play, and with Lord Balin already there and people are already starting to farm him as we speak, Rumil and Orphan will be on a lot of people's radar. And when you start getting those guys going, and then you actually can see the performance that like a 6 or 7-star, you know, gear 8, gear 9, gear 10, Rumil, Orphan, Balin with 2 others can perform, I think they're going to be a top-notch team in a lot of chapters. So in this case, Legolas and Gimli is kind of paired well with them and doing extremely good, but I foresee them to continue to perform at the highest levels of most chapters for Mines of Moria. And then number 1, surprised, Rivendell, right? Once again, Rivendell is they're broken, right? They're just an absolutely great team across the board in all chapters. They really are not weak in any of them. Like, sure, they're better than, you know, in certain chapters versus others, but they can pretty much hit 1.5 million as like a fully built out team in any of the 4 chapters. Again, in this case, Narameri seems to shine best with this squad, but I have seen people running him with Balin, Lord Balin, if you want to, like, if you don't have like Rumil and Orphan to build out like kind of a Balin's Expedition squad, which like I don't. I mean, I have 4-star Rumil and Orphan, but they're not like geared up or anything, so they're kind of just sitting in my roster until they're farmable. But Leliel 2 is actually doing decently well in this comp. Which is cool because I actually have Leliel, not really built out a lot, but when I went after Lord Elrond, I didn't have Arwen and Eladin yet as farmable because I didn't have enough power to get to those nodes in the campaign before the event was going to come to give me enough time to farm them to 5-star. So I had to pick, you know, five other total elves in order to even qualify to get a 5-star Lord Elrond, and Lelio is one of them that you kind of can get earlier in the campaign. So I had to, like, unfortunately use resources into her because, like, she didn't really seem valuable, and a lot of people suggested she's not really like one of the better elves to even kind of go after. So I was a little bit disappointed that it was the only way that I could do it because I needed to get the elf count. But she's actually doing well here, so at least there is a spot that I can use her because she is usable on my account, so that's kind of nice. But that will that'll do it, guys. Like, that is all 4 chapters coming out of Mines of Moria for Heroes of Middle Earth for December 2023. So my plan, and let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see a video like this again in like a couple of weeks, maybe like end of January. I can do like an updated version and see how much has changed, or we can also do it maybe like in February to give it a little more time to kind of see how things sort of pan out. But I do expect to see changes as characters continue to be added to the game, as characters continue to be available to farm. And so I do want to continue making these because this will continue to change. But I don't think it's something that like every week or every other week you're going to see enough change that is worth making like another guide around, hey, like December 25th raid, how did things perform? And of course, a lot of these will probably be the same because not a lot of people are going to have a significant change to their account progression in just a short week or two. You really need a couple of months to really have time to build out new characters, right? So I will make another series of this, and I'll probably push it at some point in January or February, so keep an eye out for that. But if you guys like the video, let me know in the comments below. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one.